My name is Josh Atwell. I'm here to talk about DevRel'n for dollars. Yes, I'm a little bit of wordplay there, but it's really talking about real quickly highlights of understanding the business value of developer relations. I'm currently a free agent DevRel leader, and thanks to Stephen and everybody for an opportunity for me to put some of these thoughts together, because I found there's some misunderstanding about DevRel. Hold on one second, I can't see. A little bit about me and my background. I went from building and automating data centers to doing developer relations, product marketing, and leadership. I'm a long-time DevOps advocate, so long-time promotion of that. I have numerous publications on technology and DevOps and DevRel topics. And I have a real passion for improving the working environment for IT professionals and developers. So this has been really passionate for me for a long time. All right, here we go. So here's some common reasons for DevRel, right? Organizations say, hey, we need to have developer relations. They're really often looking for how to increase awareness of their product, how to communicate out to developers. They're looking for content creation. That's almost always inevitable, and documentation sometimes falls into the scope of developer relations. Community engagement is almost always across the board something that's expected, and that includes showing up in public communities. And then it's really a product market engagement. Like, how do we get this product out to the market and get people interested in it? Unfortunately, developer relations doesn't always get really well structured to the business. Because what people usually see when they see DevRel is people speaking at conferences, doing podcasts, writing blogs, writing articles, and doing the community engagement that they say we have to have. But it's often very difficult for leaders and companies to understand, what is the real business value here? And I've also found, as I've continued to mature and lead teams, that people who want to do developer relations also miss the connection. So I'm going to hit some highlights on what those connections are. So, as I mentioned, the value mapping is usually very misunderstood. Yeah, butts in seats, clicks on links, views, that's valued, but that is low value. They're important, we need to have it, but it's not really an indicator of true success. And it's really difficult to say, is this really driving value in the growth of your products? So I look at a couple of key focus areas for DevRel. Right? You need customer and developer success has to be the #1 priority, right? If the developers aren't successful, you're not successful. It's important to be customer zero. If you are not using the product as it is being built and you're using it before customers see it, it's really hard for you to be an advocate for customers. And being an advocate for your customers, for developers, is really critical, right? Because those folks don't usually have someone that truly understands them and is advocating for them. And you need to be aggressive about understanding how the work you're doing aligns with KPIs for the business and setting your OKRs accordingly, right? So from a developer success, one of the first things for developer success comes in learning, right? Yes, you need to increase the awareness of the product, but you also need to make sure people understand the use cases, when and where they would use it. Teaching about the APIs, how the APIs are intended to work, how they really work for different use cases, and making sure people understand what integrations are available for the API, whether it be like Terraform or PowerShell, Python, SDKs, things of that nature. And of course, developing learning content. You are learning the product, right, as though you're learning the product and teaching it to someone else, because your customers, as they become aware of the product, they're going to want to learn it and say they need to know how to get started. A big component of successful developer relations is in friction reduction, right? And this is really understanding where customers are having difficulty understanding your product, getting your product up and running, getting it integrated into their processes or their tooling, right? And the difficult part is that sometimes the product is as is, right? You may be early in your product, or you may be moving your product to new areas, and making sure people have a clear understanding of what your product does today and what it's going to do today and how to use it today is a really big friction point that a lot of people have. Another big component for developer success is for developers to be able to see your developer advocates or developer relations engineers and the people in that organization as trusted peers. They don't see them as marketers. They don't see them as salespeople. They see them as someone's when I'm in an IDE, this person's in the IDE, we're sharing a similar experience. When we have a conversation, we're speaking the same language, right? So you can be in developer relations, you're going to be integrated with marketing, you're going to be working with the product management teams, but you are communicating with the same vernacular as a peer and a trusted peer. And building that trust is a big part of, is built based on a big part of your community engagement and being present and demonstrating that credibility. So when we get into like the business KPIs, and this is where it gets really tricky for developer relations organizations and people leading those teams, the business KPIs are critically important. The first one that I always highlight is the adoption rate, right? Any organization who is building a product is tracking their adoption rate. If it's product-led growth, they're doing it online. If it's got a traditional sales motion, they may be using that. But what they're looking for is, do we see nonlinear growth of this product in the customer base, in the install base, right? And unfortunately, it's often a trailing indicator, right? We like to think, right, we're going to increase awareness, we're going to reduce friction, something's going to happen, and then we profit. So we have to understand that the adoption rate isn't just the indicator that we are successful, right? And one thing that I also find is often overlooked with developer relations is with the sales enablement. If you don't have a good partnership with the sales organization as a developer relations team and helping enable them, communicate to them, teach them how to communicate, get your SEs to be seen as trusted advisors and communicating properly, you're going to have difficulty in hitting your business KPIs and aligning with them. When you look at support deflection, this is a common one with developer relations. I don't suggest you hang your hat on this one, but it is important to understand how your energy and activities are supporting customers who are running into problems. And I know this goes back to friction reduction, right? So when you see these problems and you see this consistency and friction, develop documentation, develop tools, get those out, get utilities and workarounds, and then promote and communicate those. Get them out into your community, get it into Stack Overflow, get it out into other places. Say, hey, you're running GKE, this is a thing you're running into. If you're using our product, this is a consideration that you need to have. Retention, expansion, and attrition. This is where the real money hits, right? Once you get somebody on board, how do you keep them on board, right? Working with the sales and product teams to understand that you have the correct product use case fit, right? Making sure you have the right support documentation, making sure that alignment, that use case is being communicated consistently through your product marketing and through your sales organization, and making sure that product is working as desired or expected. And as I mentioned before, if it's not, you got to give some indicator of that and work to improve that. Right? And so all of these efforts are really focused on developer success. You're not going to keep a developer using our product and, more importantly, getting standardized on that product if you're not hitting these focus areas. You're going to work with the marketing organization. It's inevitable. The marketing team may be the ones paying developer relations, or it could be product, it could be sales. It really depends on the focus area for the company, but you will work with marketing. Site traffic, content views, those things are important, right? It's important for the campaigns. Another area specifically for developer relations is in audience growth, right? How do you get the YouTube channel up? How do you get more people into product documentation? How do you get your getting started guys to be premium content? And then lastly, making sure that the developer relations team understands the marketing campaigns as they're happening, how they can plug in, contribute, and make the right content available, because those campaigns are the top of how we engage with customers. And then an important one I don't think gets talked about with developer relations enough is really around share of voice and working with marketing to say, we are a trusted advisor, we are a trusted voice on this topic in this market, right? We have the people who understand these problems, and I hope you're seeing how this stuff builds, right? Like this, if you're not doing some of the early things, you'll never get these, right? And in doing so, one of the things I do with all of my DevRel teams is work on earned invited offerings. And this is where you say, hey, I did this talk, somebody saw the talk, they invited me to a podcast, that podcast got the interest from another thing, then I did a tech field day, then I did this other thing, and it's all cascading because you're demonstrating yourself as a trusted advisor to the peers in the community. And this then also leads to a steady rate of press and analyst briefings and new opportunities. So you have to be doing all your DevRel planning, understanding that you're getting integrated so that you can produce these things. And then, of course, marketing always cares about the funnel, and then sales inevitably will care about the funnel. So making sure that your content and your activities wherever possible, can align in with a campaign, and working with the campaign teams to make sure you have a Salesforce ID, or that if you're using Marketo or whatever tooling you use, learn that tooling. Learn how your content and your efforts are aligned with those campaigns. Because if you do not have that alignment, your value is seen as that person's just out there doing a talk and the thing, and we're not really getting the benefit we expect we should get. And then most importantly, learn how to track that campaign performance. And then the last level of this that I'll talk about is working with the product team and product development, right? DevRel teams need to be advocates for customers. Remember, you put customer success first, right? And so the customers in the market needs to see the developer relations team as they're the advocates. They're the voice for us. We know that when we bring an issue, it's going to get to the product teams. And the most important thing is providing regular updates. Being customer zero, which means you are trying the products, the integrations, the SDKs, you're using them before anybody else, before it hits the market. That way, you're identifying potential friction and either providing correction or providing documentation or ways to reduce that friction. Now, I always advocate for honesty. It's like, look, sometimes things aren't working really, really well. All right, and then identification and communication of product gaps. Finding the mechanism to communicate with the product team. You can't just be out speaking at conferences. You've got to be able to have a method for and develop that method for communicating with the product organization. Have relationships with the product managers so you can work on feature prioritization. It doesn't mean that your prioritization is going to hit the top, but customers need to know that those conversations are happening, and you need to be able to demonstrate your leadership and your voice in that process. So in summary, DevRel should be a key contributor across the business, right? And you should be able to understand how to align with the KPIs of various parts of the business and build your OKRs accordingly. The credibility that you develop is critically important. It takes a lot of energy to build it, and it makes it really easy to lose it. So you have to make sure you're building credibility with your customers, both internal customers and internal stakeholders. And as you develop OKRs for developer relations, make sure that you're reviewing them with leaders in the product organization, sales organization, marketing organization to ensure whatever the biggest challenge of successful adoption for your customers for that quarter or the upcoming quarter, that you're aligning your OKRs for that quarter, making adjustments, because it's really easy to try to tackle everything. It's really important to get focused, and by doing that, you can ensure that your organization, your DevRel team, is going to get the support, the integration, and the credibility that it needs and it deserves to be successful. And that is it. Thank you very much.